Another Toronto middle school now investigating an alleged anti-Semitic incident in which students reportedly performed the Nazi salute in front of classmates and, as you heard there, a Jewish teacher. Valley Park Middle School says this happened last Thursday, calling it upsetting and unacceptable. Earlier this month, another TDSB classroom reportedly experienced examples of hate when students at Charles H. Best Middle School allegedly performed the Nazi salute.
There have also been multiple incidents of swastikas being drawn or depicted in TDSB schools in recent weeks. Today, Ontario's education minister issued a statement that reads in part, "Anti-Semitic incidents are happening too often in schools and across our communities. What transpired at TDSB, in addition to numerous recent disturbing anti-Semitic incidents in Toronto schools, demands a strong response from the board to counter Jew hate." So where do we focus our efforts? Joining us now, Kurt Phillips, a board member with the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, who's also a high school and middle school teacher in Alberta, and Jamie Kersner-Roberts, Director of Policy with the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Centre. Thank you both for making time for this discussion. Jamie, what do you make of the shock and the trauma behind this behavior when we hear that the teacher impacted is a child of Holocaust survivors?
Well, like you said, it is shocking. It's very shocking, and it's very disturbing. It makes our entire community feel ill at ease and afraid. And I have to tell you that these kinds of incidents are happening far too often. Since the beginning of this school year, since September, we have received a report of about one anti-Semitic incident in TDSB schools every day. So far from being an outlier, what happened last week has become normalized. It's become par for the course. And this is what is most troubling and frightening of all.
One incident a day at TDSB schools, that is shocking. Kurt, any idea where this behavior is coming from? How is it getting into our schools?
Well, that it's happening that frequently, sadly, isn't very much of a surprise at this point. One of the things we've been seeing is that social media has been essentially kind of a poison for a lot of our youth. There's something that the far right use to try to manipulate and try to recruit. It's called irony poisoning. And they put out, the idea is to put out so many shocking and offensive comments or images and just say, oh, we're just joking, don't take it seriously, that it eventually desensitizes people to the odious nature of those images and those words, to the point where you start to, as you said, is normalizing that particular point of view. And again, these groups are making incredibly effective use of the technologies that exist, that young people especially are drawn to, like TikTok.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so, Jamie, how do we address this? Your group's calling for emergency action to address anti-Semitism. We've heard from elected officials saying this is unacceptable, the TDSB also. But if our response is just saying that isn't funny, it just doesn't go far enough, does it?
I mean, no, it definitely doesn't. I mean, I just want to clarify that these students were not doing the Sieg Heil, the Nazi salute. They were not shouting Heil Hitler as a joke. So there may be other incidents that have happened that were a joke, but this was not a joke. We are not understanding this as a joke. This was a very intentional effort to target a Jewish teacher with hate language. So just to clarify about the incident that we're talking about, this was not in any way supposed to be a joke or taken as a joke. We see the problem of anti-Semitism within our school board here as being very much a systemic one. It is a form of hatred that has become pervasive in our schools, among students, and unfortunately also among teachers and staff to some extent. So, this is a system-wide problem, and this requires a system-wide solution. So, we are asking TDSB to stop now with the kind of one-off reactive responses. Instead, invest in a full strategy of education around anti-Semitism, the same way they have invested in strategies of education around other forms of hatred.
Jamie, I want to ask you as well about how our adults are playing into this entire conversation. How do you see what unfolded in Ottawa for the last few weeks, sort of influencing hate in our own communities? I want to talk about this Anti-Defamation League in New York. They've published a new report on who's been donating to the Freedom Convoy here in Canada and that January 6th insurrection in the U.S. And the ADL actually found that more than 1,000 people funded both of those movements. So, of course, that is not to say that all of the donors have anti-Semitic views, but what does that connection say based on your own research and your own work?
I mean, I don't see any direct connection between what happened at the school last week and the truckers' convoy. I mean, the fact is that anti-Semitic incidents have increased dramatically starting at the beginning of the school year, which was months before the convoy. And there's no indication that students at this school are connected in any way to that convoy. What I will say is that we are living in a moment where public figures are often speaking and casually about the Holocaust, misappropriating and falsely using Holocaust metaphors and symbols in contexts which they do not apply. We have been seeing this from public figures across the board throughout this pandemic, and we also see this we also have seen this in the trucker mobilization, and so this is also part of what we are seeing in the schools is this new and casual way in which students are using Nazi and Holocaust language and symbols. Whether it's in a joking way, whether it's casually or whether they have simply become aware of this language and symbols in the last few months because of this kind of rhetoric that's going around, and then they are using it intentionally to be hateful. So I would say the issues that you've raised with the trucker convoy are actually the symptom of the same issue, which is causing our problems here.
The normalization, as you say, Jamie. So, Kurt, what do you make of what the ADL's reported here, that more than 1,000 people who donated to that movement on January 6th in the U.S. insurrection have donated as well to the efforts here in Ottawa?
Well, I would echo what was just said. I mean, this is part of a general kind of landscape and environment ecosystem that's been developed over the past number of years. The fact that the same individuals who helped to fund the January 6th insurrection were also involved in funding this. I think it goes to show the connections internationally that these kind of movements have and the danger that it truly represents. With regard to the use of anti-Semitic language and iconography, it's really distressing. The number of people I've seen at anti-COVID mandate protests wearing yellow stars and claiming that they are as persecuted as the Jews were during the Holocaust, with no sense of history about what actually occurred, that gets into the culture as well. Young people especially, who don't have maybe the frame of reference that an older adult might, maybe it hasn't gone through the history and been taught the history as we have. For them, that's normal. That's, okay, the Holocaust is just this event and no different than any other event. We know that was a unique example of hatred and genocide in our human history, and I think we need to do a much better job of educating our students and young people about the really perniciousness of this kind of iconography.
So, Jamie, let's talk about that education piece. Valley Park Middle School will now be teaching Holocaust history. Should this be mandated across the board, across the province? I mean, how valuable is education to all of this?
I mean, we believe that it is incredibly valuable. It's the number one, our number one priority when addressing hate incidents is to offer education. And, we believe that any kind of approach or any kind of response to the anti-Semitism problem on the board has to start with offering broad-based education to students at all different age levels about not just the Holocaust, but modern anti-Semitism as well, and also offering training to teachers, both for themselves and their own knowledge, and in terms of how to talk to their students about hatred towards Jews. We have been very grateful. We received very recently a grant from the province to develop an anti-Semitism toolkit for teachers. And we are always looking to build new partnerships with school boards to develop curriculum and programming on issues related to anti-Semitism, Holocaust, and genocide. We really believe that this is a fundamental part of the answer here.
Jamie Kersner-Roberts and Kurt Phillips, we have to leave the discussion there, but we do appreciate both of you making time for this important conversation, and it hopefully motivates everyone to stand up against hate. Thank you.